We will now turn to consideration of the HUD bill. The subcommittee has worked together and produced a very strong bill, and I want to thank all the subcommittee members, but particularly the chair and ranking member and their staff for working to prepare this bill for this markup. I made my comments on the bill at the beginning, so I will now recognize the vice chair if she would like to comment further on the bill.
Well, thank you very much to Chair Hyde-Smith and Ranking Member Gillibrand for your work together to put a bill together that makes crucial investments in our infrastructure and in our families. I would like to do more to address the housing crisis. I will not stop pushing for that, but I am glad to say this bill rejects President Trump's proposed cuts to rental assistance that would have put 10 million people at risk of eviction, mostly kids, seniors, and people with disabilities. This bill does deliver funding to help make sure no one is kicked out of their home and keeps families stably housed, and that is very important. It also rejects cuts to fair housing enforcement, increases funding for economic self-sufficiency programs, and increases funding to prevent homelessness and help those experiencing it, another priority that this president, for whatever reason, would like us to do less, not more. And when it comes to transportation, this bipartisan bill includes a much-needed increase for FAA to hire air traffic controllers, modernize equipment, and more. It also invests in highway safety, rail safety, pipeline safety, not to mention investments in our ports and our shipyards. It rejects Trump's cuts to essential air services that would have cut off many of our small and rural communities, and it rejects the House Republican proposal to slash capital investment grants by 98%. And of course, rejects Trump's plan to eliminate build grants. That is a program that I helped launch. It supports major construction projects in our country. So overall, this is a very solid compromise bill that protects important work in all of our states, and I again appreciate the work that went into it.
I will now call upon the subcommittee leadership to present their bill, and we will begin with Chair Hyde-Smith.
Thank you, Chair Collins, and for your leadership, your commitment for so many years on this committee, along with Vice Chair Murray, to report this bill out of committee for consideration to the full Senate. I want to also thank Ranking Member Gillibrand. I appreciate the hard work and collaborative attitude that you and your staff have demonstrated throughout the bill writing process to achieve a very strong bipartisan product. The fiscal year 2026 Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development and Related Agencies Appropriations Bill is fiscally responsible and responsive to our nation's need while adhering to the budgetary constraints that this committee must operate within. The bill includes $26.5 billion for DOT, $73.3 billion for HUD, and $424 million for several independent agencies, which include the National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Maritime Commission. The funding provided in this bill aligns with the FY2024 enacted levels and adheres to the subcommittee's allocated amount for fiscal year 2026. Despite changes and open-ended mandatory spending items required to be funded throughout the appropriations law. So to be clear, Ranking Member Gillibrand and I did not have infinite resources to work with, but we worked to stretch as much as we had, as far as we could, to carry out the essential functions of DOT, HUD, and related agencies. And we did, I believe, achieve our objective. This year alone, a tragic mid-air collision over the Potomac River and multiple air traffic control communication outages have underscored the urgency for Congress to take decisive action on aviation safety. Our bill delivers on that call. After meeting with the families of those who lost their lives in the tragic crash over the Potomac earlier this year, we worked together to include $2 million for the National Academy of Sciences to conduct an independent study to address the airspace complexities around the D.C. airport so we can learn from the mistakes made and prevent similar accidents. Further, the bill provides $22.4 billion in total resources for FAA. This includes $4 billion to fund the administration's request to modernize our nation's air traffic system, to hire an additional 2,500 new air traffic controllers, and to hire an additional 91 safety inspectors and engineers to address the ongoing safety needs of the agency. The bill continues to prioritize safety across all other modes of transportation as well. For example, $75 million is provided for rail infrastructure and safety improvement grants, and the bill supports the safe integration of advanced vehicle technologies on our roadways. The bill continues key investments to improve our nation's transportation infrastructure, including $250 million for the BUILD program, $350 million for a rural bridge rehabilitation and repair program, $75 million for port infrastructure development grants, and $30 million for grants to support small shipyards. At the same time, the bill continues to fully fund existing rental assistance for more than 4.6 million households to ensure that seniors, people living with disabilities, and working families who currently receive such assistance are not put out undue risk of homelessness. Additional investments are made toward ending youth homelessness, supporting victims of domestic violence, and developing more permanent supportive housing. The bill also provides $3.1 billion for the Community Development Block Grant, or the CDBG, which has very strong bipartisan support and helps state and local governments promote economic activity and job creation. This bill also maintains funding for the HOME program, which is a critical source of funding for increasing the supply of affordable housing. Given the broad range of programs and activities funded in this bill, from highway safety to homelessness prevention, the subcommittee received and carefully considered nearly 5,000 requests from 87 senators. The result is thoughtfully crafted appropriations bill that is responsible with taxpayer dollars while addressing critical priorities. Again, I thank Ranking Member Gillibrand and her staff for all their hard work in helping us to get to this point, including the clerk, Joe Eckert, Rajat Mathur, Jessica Sun, and Kelsey Daniels. I'm also grateful for my team, the clerk Mike Clark, Jason Woolwine, Cam O'Brien, and Jake Lynch, as well as the GPO staff, led by Valerie Hutton, who were instrumental in assisting our teams with this bill production, and also my staff, Kendall Moore and Daniel Ulmer. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting the fiscal year 2026 HUD bill. Thank you again, Chair Collins and Vice Chair Murray, for convening today's markup.
Thank you, Chair Hyde-Smith. Senator Gillibrand, I know then Senator Coons is very eager to make some remarks, but Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, Vice Chair Murray. Thank you for your leadership and support for this bill. I know why, Madam Chairman, you chose to have the subcommittee for so long, because it has such meaningful work in it. As former chairs and ranking members of the HUD subcommittee, I know that you are well versed in the importance of all the investments in this legislation and in our states. I want to thank Chair Hyde-Smith for her excellent leadership. She's been an extraordinary partnership, and I really enjoy working together. This bill is always popular by members of this committee and the entire Senate because it provides real benefits to all communities across America. It's a bipartisan bill that makes investments in shared priorities and critical needs. As Chair Hyde-Smith has already said, I'm glad that the bill fully funds the FAA, something that was important to the chair and ranking member of this committee, to address challenges at airports in New York and throughout our country, and to hire more air traffic controllers. The need for this funding was so unfortunately highlighted by the tragic crash in January. I want to thank the families of the victims from this crash who have been tirelessly advocating to make sure that this never happens again. I'm glad we were able to include the independent study on the DCA airspace, which these families have asked to include. Other transportation highlights in the bill are fully funding Amtrak's request for the Northeast Corridor and National Network, supporting the New York Hudson Tunnel and 2nd Avenue subway projects, investing in safety and security of our transit systems, and supporting our future maritime security leaders by investing in our Merchant Marine Academy. I'm also proud that we fully funded renewals for HUD rental and homelessness assistance. The bill soundly rejects the harmful cuts and changes proposed by the President's budget request and maintains assistance for over 10 million Americans, most of whom are children, seniors, and people with disabilities who rely on these critical HUD programs. This bill also sustains targeted investments to support homeless veterans, youth, survivors of domestic violence, and expands access to permanent supportive housing. As ranking member of the Aging Committee, I'm deeply concerned by the fact that seniors are the fastest growing age group among people experiencing homelessness. The bill helps our homeless response system adapt to the unfortunate reality that more and more seniors are experiencing. All across the country, we hear that it's too expensive to rent or buy a home. As a nation, we need to keep working together to increase the supply of affordable housing. I'm extremely pleased that this bill maintains robust funding for the home program at $1.25 billion to build affordable housing. This is in addition to the over $400 million in affordable housing-related projects requested by members directly. In my discretion, I tried to make sure our members' request for affordable housing was given. I also want to thank Chair Hyde-Smith for working with me in a bipartisan manner to include provisions to make sure the Appropriations Committee can maintain its oversight of DOT and HUD, something I've heard a lot about from my colleagues, especially as it relates to competitive grants, staffing, and office closures. Overall, this bill addresses member requests from both sides of the aisle, and I want to once again compliment Chair Hyde-Smith for working with me to write this truly bipartisan bill. I also want to thank the HUD staff. I'll just say their first names: Mike, Jason, Cam, Jake, Rajat, Jessica, Kelsey, Joe, and Ryan on my staff. They worked really well together as a team on a bipartisan basis to meet the needs of all the members. I really enjoyed this partnership with Chair Hyde-Smith, and I appreciate her dedication to getting this bill across the finish line. And I turn it back to the chairwoman.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just briefly wanted to thank and commend Chair Hyde-Smith and Ranking Member Gillibrand. As a member of the subcommittee, I was concerned about how this bill might come together, given some of the proposals. As someone who commuted by rail every day, my first decade here, I know the importance of our having strong national passenger rail systems. As a county executive who dedicated a lot of time to affordable housing and hears constantly from my constituents about the urgency of sustaining our investment in affordable housing, your sustained commitment to the home program, to CDBG, to youth homelessness, to veteran homelessness, to rental assistance is enormously important to millions of people. Lots of folks don't realize this committee is continuing to function, continuing to build strong bipartisan bills, and continuing to defend the necessary and valuable investments in critical things like housing. Congratulations to the two of you and your staff for crafting a truly strong bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coons. I will now turn to Senator Hyde-Smith for a manager's Senator Moran.
Chairwoman Collins, thank you. And to my colleagues, Senator Gillibrand and Senator Hyde-Smith, I just want to express my appreciation for many things that are in this bill, but I want to highlight one of them. Since January the 29th and the disaster, the air tragedy that occurred at Reagan, we've paid particular attention to air traffic control and safety. And I also chair the Commerce Committee's subcommittee on aviation and space, and we're paying a lot of attention to what we need to do in an authorizing way. But what this bill does is provide additional dollars. It $5 billion, particularly the $5 billion for FAA's facilities and equipment account, and this fully funds the President's budget for F&E, and it complements the $12.5 billion that was included in reconciliation. And I would also say that Secretary Duffy has been relentless in trying to make certain that we provide the necessary resources to update the technology in air safety and air traffic control. And this subcommittee recognizes the importance. And I thank Senator Gillibrand and Senator Hyde-Smith for that. Again, January 29th, when a flight from Wichita, Kansas was collided with a Army helicopter at Reagan National Airport really was a seminal moment for me and perhaps others in trying to make sure that we do not overlook the importance of updating the necessary technology for every American and in fact everyone around the world to fly safely in and around the United States. So thank you both.
Thank you, Senator Moran. Are there any other general comments before we turn to the manager's amendment?
Madam
Senator
Chair,
Van
if
Hollen.
I could just thank Senator Moran for this amendment. For those of us who represent states in this region, the situation at Reagan National, safety situation has been an ongoing concern. Many of us argued against adding slots years ago, and some of us voted against the FAA reauthorization bill because of that. So I appreciate your efforts here, and we also look forward to working with Secretary Duffy. I've asked him about this at hearings before the Appropriations Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other general comments on the bill? If not, I would turn to Chair Hyde-Smith to present the manager's amendment.
Madam Chair, I would like to offer a manager's package containing amendments for the fiscal year 2026 Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development and Related Agencies Bill. This package has been negotiated and agreed to by both sides, and I ask that it be adopted by unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Without objection, the manager's package is agreed to. Are there any members who wish to offer an amendment to this bill?
Madam Chair.
Senator Merkley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm again calling up my amendment regarding the rescissions exemption, Merkley Amendment number 1. There are questions that have arisen about this amendment from our previous discussion, so I wanted to address a couple of those. And one of those is, does this amendment block the type of rescission we saw on the floor 2 weeks ago? And the answer is no. That package regarded earlier FY22, 23, 24, 25, funding, often multi-year funding. This would only affect the floor rescissions on things that are signed into law by President Trump. In other words, that we have agreed to on a bipartisan basis, that the President has agreed to. And yet it also leaves the door open for even the things that we pass on a bipartisan basis, even the things that President Trump has signed off on. It still leaves the door open for rescissions, but it just says, send them back to this committee. These two bills we have today both have rescissions in them. This is the place where rescissions should be considered. It is the long tradition of this committee working together to tackle in a bipartisan way rescission questions that we have previously passed on a bipartisan basis. So this is essentially maintaining the precedent of this committee. Does not affect the immediate additional proposals that will come from the President. I do hope that if we get additional rescission packages from the President that go to the floor, that they'll get referred to this committee and we'll consider those on a bipartisan basis. I hope we'll do that. But this amendment does not affect that. That is a separate conversation. But this says going forward, for those bills we passed for FY26, that if there are rescissions, those will also be done on a bipartisan basis in front of this committee. And so I think it's very valuable for reinforcing the work that we have done, for strengthening the precedent that has existed over many decades, and I would encourage your support.
Senator Hyde-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And while I appreciate the discussion that this amendment initiates, the Budget Committee is a more appropriate venue for this debate. This amendment falls under the jurisdiction of the Budget Committee, which has authority over this process. So given these concerns, I recommend that my colleagues vote against the amendment.
Madam Chair.
Senator Murr.
I want to thank Senator Merkley for offering this amendment because this really is an important discussion. We had a good discussion last week, but I think it's important that we all remember the principle of a deal is a deal, and that means that this committee should not let our bipartisan bills written and voted on in this committee be undone later by a partisan proposal written by the White House. So that just seems to me common sense for this committee as a whole. And I want to address the matter of jurisdiction. Senator Merkley referenced it a bit in his remarks, but we actually did a bill on the rescissions on the floor last week. It was referred to this committee, to the Appropriations Committee. The Appropriations Committee was then discharged from further action on the floor, along with budget, and every motion to recommit during the debate, and there were many, was to this committee appropriations. So those are the facts. Now, I acknowledge the Budget Committee also has a role here, but we have to be clear, fundamentally, rescissions involve the work of this committee, and for that reason, I do think it's entirely appropriate for this committee to speak on this issue, which threatens our work, this committee's work, and hopefully address it on a bipartisan basis.
Are there others who wish? Senator Gillibrand.
Madam Chairwoman, I want to speak in support of this amendment. I just want to speak to my colleagues. There's a reason why past Congresses didn't do rescissions. There's a reason why we rejected rescissions for decades. And it's because we work best on a bipartisan basis. What Chair and I worked on together, what Chair Hyde-Smith and I worked on together, is a good bipartisan bill. You heard comments from both Senator Moran and from Senator Coons about how important tackling the homeless crisis in this country is, how important affordable housing is for our seniors and our veterans and our people with disabilities. There's so much shared interest in this committee, and there's so much shared purpose by senators who are Democrats and Republicans. And the national media and this administration wants to destroy that. You heard from the administration, I want less bipartisanship in spending, in appropriations. I don't know why we would allow anyone to take away our power. It's Congress's power to have the power of the purse. And I just want you to receive the import of this moment. When you take away the bipartisanship of this body, you take away what's best about this body. You take away what's best about our constitutional authorities. The reason why we have a balance of power in this country is because we don't want any one body to have too much power. When one party has all the power, they always overreach. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what decade it is, they always overreach. And the people respond by changing who's in charge. So I just want this committee to understand the administration's taking away your power to be bipartisan, your power to bring this country together, your power to heal the wounds that are happening across the nation, the divisiveness, the anger. So I don't know why you would let anyone take away your power. And all this amendment is doing is to restore the power of the purse to the Appropriations Committee, to the bipartisanship, the work we do every Congress that is meaningful. And it is so hurtful to take away that process because it takes away the voices of our constituents. For Chair Collins, I remember the most impassioned speech you ever gave in a closed session where you talked about taking away the minorities' rights. And it was so profound. I was a junior senator, and I was so moved by you insisting the importance of the filibuster, insisting on the importance of hearing the minority of this country's voice. And when you allow rescissions, and this administration wants to have many more, they're going to target the things that were bipartisan in this bill because they don't share the concerns that we have for our constituents. They don't go back to our states every weekend. They don't talk to the people that are suffering. They don't talk to the homeless youth. They don't talk to homeless veterans. They don't receive what we receive, Madam Chairwoman. And so when you allow for rescissions, you delete bipartisanship. You delete our power. You delete the role of minority members of this body, and it's just wrong. So I just want to support this amendment, Senator Merkley. I appreciate the time you gave me to talk about this. But this goes to the heart of who we are as senators. and who we are as a body and who we are as the balance of power that the Constitution provided for. You should not let them take away your power willingly.
Are there other comments on this amendment? First, let me just make a couple of points. One is that I have always advocated for bipartisanship and more bipartisanship, and this committee has lived up to that. Look at the votes to report the bill, even in this highly divisive atmosphere in which we are legislating. Second, if you look at the bill before us and you look at the bill that Chair Murkowski put forth, independent decisions were made in collaboration with the vice chairs of each subcommittee. The problem that we have with this amendment, which would amend sections 1012 through 1017 of the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974, is that bill, that law, is under the jurisdiction of the Budget Committee, of which, ironically, the proponent of this amendment is the ranking member. So that's where this bill, this amendment should be considered. I would also point out and that I have encouraged the administration to work more closely with this committee on any rescissions that it identifies. This committee has rescissions in virtually every appropriations bill that we report and has for years. The continuing resolution under which we are operating right now has 70 rescissions in it. So rescissions are not unusual. What we need to do is ensure that they reflect the views of this committee. And for that reason, because of jurisdictional reasons and because of the breadth of this amendment, I urge that it be turned down. I do think it is an important issue, however. Senator Murkowski.
Madam Chair, I will be brief. I appreciate what you have said, and when we had this matter before us in a previous markup, my objection was on jurisdictional grounds, as has been shared here and repeated, and I think that is appropriate. But I do want to acknowledge the words of Senator Gillibrand, because I feel very strongly myself that we do have this role. It is this power of the purse, it is our Article I authorities that we should take seriously. I don't object when the administration says, here's some proposed rescissions. That's certainly their prerogative to work to try to identify it. It's then incumbent upon us. How do we handle that? Madam Chair, you noted that we have many rescissions that we have, that we're operating under within this continuing resolution. Just within my subcommittee alone in Interior Appropriations, I think, to my colleague, I think we have about $91 million in rescissions in our Interior bill, if my memory serves me right. So we are working exactly that process. And so my hope, this senator's hope, is that we do not see another rescissions package from the administration, that they do allow us to do the important and the necessary work, and the work that we're doing to identify those areas where we can find those reductions in spending. Do it smartly, do it fully informed. You might not have them in front of you, but if you go through the materials that our committees can certainly make available, we can identify to you those programs and exactly how that will be impacted going forward. That was the challenge that I had with that last rescissions package that we saw on the floor and that passed on a wholly partisan basis. If we're going to do rescissions, I think the way to do them is the way that we're doing them here on a bipartisan basis. That's smart. And to your point, Senator Gillibrand, I think that's one of the reasons that we haven't seen a successful rescissions package from the White House for 33 years until this year. Thank you.
Madam
Are there
Chair.
further comments?
Madam Chair, can I respond to that
Senator
comment?
Gillibrand.
So I don't want you to confuse the issues of the rescissions we do in our bills. Of course, we add money, we take away money, and the technical term of that is rescission. What Senator Merkley's amendment is about, and what I'm talking about, is putting a bill on the floor from the White House, from the administration, that is not negotiated on a bipartisan basis in our committee. So don't confuse the term of art rescission. Rescission just means take away. And we give and take away in our appropriations bills, as we should, on a bipartisan basis, resulting in the excellent piece of legislation that Chair Hyde-Smith and I put together. We took, and half the amendments in the manager's package are members saying, please take away a little money from here, put it over here, because I can fund one more project. That's what the manager's package is. So I'm well aware that this committee does rescissions every day. That is not what Senator Merkley's talking about. Senator Merkley's amendment prohibits the executive branch from using its authority, the other branch of government, to defer or rescind funding from this HUD bill. Under this amendment, any changes to funding can only be made through future annual appropriations committees passed by Congress, our job. So we are in agreement. Our job is what we should be protecting, and that's what his amendment is trying to do. He's not trying to say rescission's a bad word. He's saying when we do rescissions, it should be done by our committee and our committee only. Because what happens politically, which you must understand, is when the president says, I want you to cut all this money from here, here, and here, and here, sometimes people don't want to stand up to the president if they are the party in power. They just choose not to do that. That's not a fight they want to do. And it undermines us. It takes away our whole job, our whole job. And so I just don't want to have this committee confuse the word rescission, that it's the word that's bad. It's who is suggesting it in what context.
Madam Chair.
Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be brief too. I do think, and I know you understand this, and many of our colleagues do, we're going to have to resolve this issue before we're able to move and proceed through this entire process for fiscal year 26. You rightly said that the bills coming out of this committee are bipartisan, and they are, but we can only sort of take the let's trust everybody approach for so long. I'm speaking about the administration. The administration, as you know, just today again, sort of rejected the idea that the only rescissions that we would make are the ones we do in a bipartisan basis through this committee. They said no. They are planning to propose another one. I would suggest I'm going to support this amendment in committee, but if it's a committee jurisdiction concern with this amendment, and Senator Merkley may speak to this, we'll have a chance on the floor of the Senate to address this issue if our amendment is made in order, if Senator Merkley's amendments are going to be made in order. And I hope we would do that at that time, because otherwise we are facing an unacceptable situation. I will point out finally that the GAO, the independent watchdog, just made another finding today about illegal impoundment with respect to Head Start money. So we should fight that collectively too, illegal impoundments, but at the very least, when it comes to these rescissions, we should not be doing them in a bipartisan. We should be doing them only in a bipartisan way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would like to turn to the vote. Senator Merkley, final comment.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And as you rightly noted, I am the ranking member on budget, so I've taken a very close look at this question of jurisdiction. We do have joint jurisdiction with the Budget Committee, but let's say we have this in our bill and we go to the floor and the parliamentarian advises that despite that joint jurisdiction that we were out of order. And by the way, this amendment does not amend in any way any language of the 1974 Impoundment and Budget Control Act. But let's say we lose that. Well then, if someone chooses, they put forward a budget point of order, a 306 budget point of order. it takes 60 votes to waive that point of order. We could, because we have among us enough persuasion with our colleagues in both parties that we could sustain that waiver. But if we fail, it would fall out. It's a targeted excision, subtraction. So if the argument is correct about jurisdiction, if in fact I'm wrong about the joint jurisdiction, and we therefore end up having to vote on a waiver, we can either decide at that point to support the waiver, which I would encourage. We do waive a lot of things like that on the floor, but if we didn't have those 60 votes, it would fall. So first, there's a dispute over whether there's joint jurisdiction or single jurisdiction, but I assure you, having researched it, it is joint jurisdiction. If the parliamentarian were to rule that this is a unique situation that would only go to the Budget Committee, then we have a chance to do a waiver. But if we don't have the votes for that, it would come out. So there's no danger in defending the work that we're doing today. And again, we're defending this work. This not prevent the administration from sending another rescission to the floor. For the reasons various folks have spoken to, I hope if that happens, that we will, as the Appropriations Committee, say, no, let's refer it back to this committee for action on the floor. But this protects this work going forward. And by the way, this work only becomes law if President Trump has signed it. So in multiple ways, this is an important expression of precedent, an important expression of the bipartisan work of this committee. And as this conversation evolves, I'm trying to point out that I'm really taking this out of the immediate bipartisan or the partisan fulcrum of things that the director of OMB might suggest be sent to us, because those can still be sent to the floor. Those are previous year appropriations. This protects this appropriation going forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The clerk will call the roll on the Merkley Amendment.
Senator McConnell.
Senator McConnell votes no by proxy.
Senator Murkowski.
No.
Senator Graham.
No by proxy.
Senator Moran.
No by proxy.
Senator Hoeven. No. Senator Bozeman. No. Senator Capito. No. Senator Kennedy.
Senator Kennedy votes no by proxy.
Senator Hyde-Smith. No. Senator Hagerty.
Senator Hagerty votes no by proxy.
Senator Brick.
No by proxy.
Senator Mullen.
No by proxy.
Senator Fisher. No. Senator Rounds.
Senator Rounds votes no by proxy.
Senator Murray.
Aye.
Senator Durbin.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Reed.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Shaheen.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Merkley. Senator Coons.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Schatz.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Baldwin.
Aye.
Senator Murphy.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Van Hollen. Aye. Senator Heinrich. Aye. Senator Peters.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Gillibrand. Senator Ossoff.
Aye by proxy.
Chair Collins.
No. On this vote, there are 14 ayes and 15 nays. The amendment is not agreed to. Are there further amendments to the bill? Seeing no further amendments, the bill will be reported as amended. Senator Vice Chair Murray.
Well, I want to thank Chair Collins and all of our colleagues for the work that went into making this markup possible. Our work here continues to show there is a real bipartisan path for us to write and pass our government funding bills. And when we go that route, we can come together to reject devastating cuts that hurt our communities and invest in programs that do make a difference for folks back home. Our work is not done. I look forward to marking up more bills, including the energy and water bills soon. And as I have said, and we are talking about, the path ahead is not easy, especially with Russ Vought trying to push us further into partisan corners. But it is possible to get this done. We need to keep our eye on the ball, and it's clear to me that it's worthwhile to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to close this meeting of the Appropriations Committee by first taking a moment to again thank the members of this committee, particularly our chairs today, and our vice chairs and their staffs for all their hard work. We've now reported 6 of the 12 annual bills with strong bipartisan support. And I want to particularly thank you, Vice Chair Murray. The committee plans to reconvene next week to consider additional appropriations bills, and an announcement will be forthcoming. The meeting of this committee is now adjourned.